these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am
I am
tired,
tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
My fellow Americans, hey, good morning. What do you say? It is Wednesday, April 30, last day of April 2014. So good to see you today on a day chock full of news. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., here on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We'll bring you up to date on all that's happening here in Washington, D.C., around the country, around the world. And we'll give you a chance to tell us what it all means to you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Donald Sterling is silver no more. No, because NBA Commissioner Adam Silver really dropped the hammer yesterday, no doubt about it. Fining him $2.5 million for those racist comments made on audio tape to his girlfriend and banning Sterling from the game for life. Now it's up to 3/4 of the owners to strip him of his ownership and force him to sell the team. It's a big win-win for the fans, for the players, for the NBA, and for the United States of America. President Obama back in the White House today will give a speech on the minimum wage this afternoon, just before the Senate votes to raise the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour late this afternoon. The Supreme Court handing the EPA a major victory yesterday, upholding its tough new rules on coal-burning power plants. And out in Oklahoma, they can't get anything right, not even the death penalty. Last night, they scheduled 2 back-to-back executions. They botched the first one so badly they had to postpone the second one. Yeah, great state of Oklahoma. All of that coming up. Don't forget, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you on board.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Banned for life. That's the ruling yesterday by NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. No doubt about it. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, April 30. Great to see you today. Welcome to the Bill Press Show. That's me, and we are here in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., booming out to you all over this great land of ours, coast to coast on your local progressive talk radio station. Also on Free Speech TV, DirecTV, the Dish Network, and on our video stream, we are all over the planet at TawkrTV. So exciting to be booming out everywhere. Saudi Arabia, Belarus, South Africa, Mauritania. We're there. Man. Tibet, we're there.
You bet, Tibet.
You bet, Tibet. You can find us on the video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. Good to see you this morning, and good to say hello to our team again this morning. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
The gang's all here. Alicia Cruz, she's got the phones covered, and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer's got the cameras and the lights on for the video stream and for Free Speech TV. Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, all right, let's start out. Okay. Sorry, Chicago.
Look.
I wanted to give you one more win last night. Remember, I said the Bulls were going to win last night, but the Wizards were on fire.
Especially at home. There's the dance.
He's geared up in his Wizards gear.
But we have to do like the cockpits on the planes.
The simulation.
And start,
putting a lock on there.
Protecting this door so people just can't walk into the cockpit.
He's not feeling safe.
We have to get the flight attendant to bed.
You never know.
You never know who's going to walk into the cockpit. That's right. Anyhow. So they did it last night, and they go on to play, who knows, right? But
either the Hawks or the Pacers. Look, Chicago, we love you. We're still here for you. WCPT, if you need a shoulder to cry on, we will be there for you. However, we kicked your asses in the opening round. That's just how it goes.
That's how it goes, right. Kind of surprising, too. I mean, you wouldn't, at the beginning of the year, you wouldn't have said, right? Wizards
you're right. Look,
the Wizards are going to be in the playoffs, and the Wizards will win in the first round.
They certainly had a rocky start to the season, but all that matters is that you get good when it counts.
That's right.
And they got good when it mattered. They managed to not only get into the playoffs, but get in convincingly, considering that they're in the East, which is kind of weak. And look, I said the Wizards were going to win against the Bulls. Not a lot of other people did.
You're right. But in a sense, the playoffs have been overshadowed by the other news in the NBA, of course, which were the comments heard by Donald Sterling. We know it's his voice now. Yes, indeed. And the decision made yesterday by Adam Silver. And, of course, that is huge fodder for all the late-night talk shows and will be for a few days at least. Last night, David Letterman couldn't wait to get started. Linking yesterday's announcement with the release this weekend of Spider-Man.
Bridie, Spider-Man, look out. You going to go see Spider-Man?
Of course.
You going to take the whole family?
Yeah, of course. It's a great family movie.
Yeah. And the early reviews about Spider-Man are already in. Take a look at the early reviews. Spider-Man.
Rolling Stone's Peter Travers calls it a dazzling summer blockbuster. The New York Times' Janet Maslin says action, thrills, emotion. It's a winner. Donald Sterling, owner of the LA Clippers, says it bothers me that you want to broadcast Spider-Man to the whole world and don't bring a half-man, half-spider to my games.
That's pretty good.
That is good.
That's pretty good.
Because it sounds so much like Sterling.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right, so we'll cover that.
Are you going to go see Spider-Man?
Are you kidding? I'm going to the White House Correspondents Association dinner this weekend. All right. We've got a lot to cover today with a lot of help. David Jackson from USA Today joining us from the White House. Two outstanding members of Congress, Dan Kildee from Michigan and Barbara Lee from Chicago, will be here in studio with us. And Mark Leibovitch, who wrote the blockbuster book, here it is, This Town, took this town and took this country by storm. All the inside stories about the partying and everything going on in Washington, and whether Washington is for real or whether it's really a phony, kind of air-kiss town. Mark Leibovitch, he'll be here in studio with us this morning as well. Yeah, perfect timing with the White House Correspondents' Dinner coming up this weekend. And yes, Donald Sterling out for life, but first.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Bill, Newfoundland has a problem.
Oh, no.
Up in Canada, Newfoundland Island, a blue whale carcass washed up onto the main boardwalk in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do with it. It's so big, and the town is so small, that they have no idea what to do with this thing, and now it's bloated because of all the methane gas that's built up inside.
Right.
And the new fear is that it's going to explode all over
my
the town.
goodness.
Yeah.
It's not a small animal, as you know.
No.
It's a blue whale. And so there were some ice storms a couple weeks ago. They were fearing that might have killed the whale. And so they're now trying to figure out, scientists are rushing to try and figure out what to do with this whale before it explodes.
Do they have any vultures up there?
It doesn't look like it. It's this huge whale. There's pictures of it if you want to look at it that we'll tweet out. But
maybe we should have a bonfire.
Oh my goodness!
Hey,
well,
look, this
dead.
is nature. Nature. Yeah.
I mean,
what else do you want? It's
and
not like we killed the thing.
Whale oil, right? It should be flammable.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. Blubber. They got blubber. It'll burn.
Whale oil. They used to have whale oil lamps.
Yeah, man.
It'll burn. All right. That's my suggestion.
All right. So going to the movie. Speaking of the movies, not Spider-Man, but Star Wars. Star Wars yesterday announced the cast for the new Star Wars movie expected next year. Some of the names that you might not recognize: Oscar Isaac, Adam Driver, John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, and Domhnall Gleeson, all new names joining the movie. However, there are some very familiar names, including Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill. They are confirmed now from the original Star Wars movie to be joining this one.
Very exciting.
Kind of cool.
I know.
And they're bringing back all the old, like Peter Mayhew is playing Chewbacca again, and the guys playing C-3PO and R2-D2 are back.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. It's going to be great.
And earlier this week, we had the sad news for women that George Clooney is off the market. He is engaged. Well, here is some good news if you are trying to find a man to marry. Prince Harry.
Donald Sterling needs a new girlfriend. He's back in the market.
That is one route.
Yeah.
That is one route. Another route is Prince Harry. He's single again. He is split up with his girlfriend, Cressida Bonus. According to People magazine, one anonymous source says that she was just too needy. And if England seems like too far a trip, don't worry. This weekend, Prince Harry will be in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, no.
He's coming to Memphis for the wedding of one of his friends. He's getting married there. So, just saying, he's newly single and at a wedding. So,
time to book some flights.
I'll tell you, that bachelor party is going to be pretty wild. They're going to
stay away from Vegas.
They're going to be playing strip pool again or whatever it was.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. We heard those racist comments from Donald Sterling just over the weekend. Talk about something happening fast. He was universally condemned for them. The big question it was which we were considering as recently as yesterday morning was, would the NBA fold again, or would they really come through this time? No doubt about it. No doubt about it. They did not fold yesterday. Adam Silver, NBA commissioner, standing up tall and strong at his news conference yesterday afternoon, announcing, first of all, that that voice, no doubt about it, it was Donald Sterling.
The central findings of the investigation are that the man whose voice is heard on the recording and on a second recording from the same conversation that was released on Sunday is Mr. Sterling, and that the hateful opinions voiced by that man are those of Mr. Sterling.
And then Adam Silver dropped the hammer, first of all, with that lifelong ban.
Effective immediately, I am banning Mr. Sterling for life from any association with the Clippers organization or the NBA.
You know what that means? That means no games. That means no practice. That means he's not even allowed in the buildings, any NBA buildings, any headquarters, any offices, any of the Clippers training centers, nowhere. Cannot be seen on the premises. I asked the question, again, whether or not the ban applies to his wife as well. It should, because I think, she's been his chief defender in all of this.
I think that's a good point.
And knowing her personality, don't know her personally, but from what I've seen, she'll probably show up and say, "Hey, didn't ban me.
Yeah,
I want to be here." I hope she has a common sense to stay away, but I doubt it. At any rate, it wasn't just the ban for life. Look, this guy is worth like $1.5 billion. So this may not affect him so much, but it's the most that Adam Silver could do. He fined him too.
I am also fining Mr. Sterling $2.5 million, the maximum amount allowed under the NBA Constitution.
And then finally, what really hurt is in terms of taking the ownership away, that he can't take the ownership away. That requires a vote of 3/4 of the other owners, 75% vote, tough in the Board of Governors, but I think he'll get it. Yesterday, he asked the governors to do their job.
I will urge the Board of Governors to exercise its authority to force a sale of the team, and will do everything in my power to ensure that happens.
Yep. And the praise, no doubt about it. He really, really acted in the sense that Stern, the former Donald Stern, wasn't it?
David Stern.
David Stern, the former commissioner, never did.
Right.
Because Sterling's been up to he had some problems before. Let's just put it that way. But Adam Silver, he really, really came through yesterday. He had consulted with the players. He talked to a lot of the other owners. He had the votes, and man, he came out full spread.
This was
yesterday.
a big test.
It was swift. It was tough. It was brutal.
Yeah, and this is his first year as commissioner.
Yep.
We didn't know a whole lot about him coming in. I think a lot of people were not satisfied with the way David Stern ran these type of situations. I think David Stern probably put the league on the map in a way that a lot of other people couldn't do. But David Stern certainly turned a blind eye to a lot of this type of behavior from the older owners. Adam Silver clearly has no tolerance for that.
No doubt at all. And as I say, the praise came in universally behind Commissioner Silver. Magic Johnson. Commissioner Silver showed great leadership in banning L.A. Clippers owner Donald Sterling for life. Dwayne Wade from the Heat. Commissioner Silver, strong, way to take charge and protect our great league. And the one owner that seemed to be maybe not along with the program, right, Mark Cuban, actually came out and said yesterday, because before he had said this could be a slippery slope, might be a slippery slope, it was a little warning. Yesterday he came out and said, I agree 100% with Commissioner Silver's findings and the actions taken against Donald Sterling. And I think that shows that he'll have the votes. Yeah,
I think he's got the votes.
No doubt about it.
I think he's got the votes.
He even got a little shout out from Al Gore. Al Gore tweeted out yesterday, great leadership by NBA's Adam Silver after Donald Sterling's despicable words. But it's great. And it is, I think, a great victory for the NBA. It's a great victory for the players. It's a great victory for the fans. It's a great victory for the Clippers. And it's a great victory for all Americans. It shows that, look, we've seen between Cliven Bundy, right, and Donald Sterling, racism may not be dead in this country, but it's not tolerated the way it used to be, certainly not among people who are in the public eye, among public figures, that they will be held responsible and accountable even for things they say in private. Or that they thought they said in private.
Right.
Yeah. And they didn't realize that the girlfriend was wearing a wire. There you go. So, what do you think? Adam Silver, the man of the hour for sure. 866-55-PRESS. Tough enough? And do you think the owners will now go along? Was this the right thing to do? What's it all mean to you? Let's not forget about Cliven Bundy, by the way. He's got to face his day in court, too. 866-55-PRESS. We'll talk about it right here Wednesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full-time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're going to do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, lawyer? I said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity, and one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him, because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 25 minutes after the hour, Donald Sterling banned for life, fined $2.5 million by NBA Commissioner Adam Silver yesterday. Now the big question is, what will the owners do? First of all, again, Peter?
I just wanted to point out there's a great story that broke last night with regards to this.
Yes.
Last night the Clippers and the Golden State Warriors were playing.
Yes.
And the Warriors had a plan in place in case Adam Silver did not act on Donald Sterling. Their plan was that if he handed down a sentence that was too light or didn't act strongly enough, they had a 30-minute meeting, and they were going to show up for the game against the Clippers. They're going to go through pregame warm-ups. They're going to take part in the national anthem, and as soon as the jump ball went up, all of their players were going to walk off the floor.
Oh
No
my
way.
God.
And they're quoted as saying that's what their plan was. They were ready to do it.
That would have been dramatic.
That would have made a point.
Yeah. As it is, they ended up playing and they got whooped.
And they lost.
And the Clippers won.
And they lost.
So
Yeah.
which was kind of poetic justice that the Clippers would win.
Look, I'm kind of pulling for the Clippers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I know at the end of the day, it's Donald Sterling's team.
No, it's Chris Paul's team.
I agree.
Yeah.
I feel that way.
Yeah, right.
I feel that way.
Or the coach, Doc Rivers.
Doc
right?
Rivers.
Yeah, indeed. By the way, so on that point, before we get to the owners, again, the response yesterday was immediate, was very strong, very positive. Mayor Eric Garcetti of Los Angeles.
I want to personally thank Commissioner Silver for bringing down the hammer, for being as strong as he could be, for saying that none of us as Americans, and certainly not as Angelenos, will stand for the sort of racism that we heard articulated.
And another person who played a major role in this decision in the whole process here was the mayor of Sacramento, of course, former NBA great Kevin Johnson. He was there as working with the Players Association to make sure that the penalty was swift and severe. Kevin Johnson.
The players had a dialogue with Commissioner Silver, and they said, we don't want you to just decide without us being weighing in, and if you don't decide harsh enough, then we as players are going to come out even stronger. And the commissioner said, we thank you for that input, and he made the right decisions.
So I think it all worked out. Harvey Arreton, in writing in the sports column in the New York Times this morning, it's the owner's ball now. They are on the clock. Shame on them if they do not run the play that sends Donald Sterling out the NBA's back door. It should be an uncontested layup, really. The 3/4 vote required by the league's Board of Governors to complete the process of getting Donald Sterling totally out of the game. So he'll sell. They'll force a sale.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
And
matter of time.
Nice to see something happen so strong and so fast. Yes.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I mean, I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, "Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but like go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about, you know, your next venture."
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. You know, I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Here we are, 34 minutes after the hour on a Wednesday, April 30. A couple of other big stories that are in the news today. One of them, we very seldom get any good news on the environmental front. And yesterday, some good news out of the Supreme Court. Believe it or not, this Roberts Supreme Court upheld the EPA and its rules regarding coal-burning power plants. This has been a big issue because the coal-burning power plants, for the most part, are found in the Appalachian states or sort of just beyond the East Coast, Kentucky particularly, and Indiana. They come, and they're the upwind states. And the winds blow to the eastern states, New York, Connecticut, Delaware, Virginia, whatever. So the downwind states have been saying, hey, these upwind states have to control their pollution. The upwind states have said, screw the downwind states. What can we do? The wind blows wherever it wants to. The EPA has tried to hold the upwind states responsible and accountable as well. They came out with new rules for the upwind states that they have to crack down on these coal-burning power plants. And the Supreme Court yesterday, by 6-2, said the EPA is right. They've got the authority to do so, and the upwind states have to comply with the EPA's rules, which is a huge victory, and also really a huge victory also for the Obama administration, of course. And it sets the stage. These are existing coal plants. It sets the stage for the newest rules of the EPA, which are due out in June, which will affect any construction of any new coal-burning power plants. Not whether or not we should be building any new coal plants is another story, but President Obama's energy policy has been all of the above, so he's not banned coal-burning power plants. But until Congress is willing to really do what has to be done on global warming and pass cap-and-trade legislation or a carbon tax, remember the United Nations in what was that? The International Environmental Panel, whatever. The report that came out last month that said how serious global warming is, and what we've got to do is have this carbon tax. Well, we can't get it through the United States Congress, but until they do, the only way to combat it, we know here from a federal government level, their ability to combat global warming is through EPA's rules. That's what the Obama administration, that's the path that they've decided to take while we're waiting for Congress to act. And again, very significant, the Supreme Court yesterday said, sided with the EPA, ruled with the Obama administration, and for their crackdown on coal-burning plants. Really good news. Bad news out of the state of Oklahoma. Shocking news out of the state of Oklahoma, where last night they had scheduled, thanks to that idiot governor of theirs, Mary Fallin, they had scheduled a double death penalty night. Back-to-back executions of two men, both African-Americans, by the way, on death row. And the first one, turns out, they botched it so badly that they had to cancel or delay the second one. It was huge, huge embarrassment for the state of Oklahoma. So the way it works, one of the problems, by the way, is that where these drugs, this is lethal injection, where these drugs are made, some companies don't want their drugs to be used for the death penalty,
for this purpose.
And they won't sell them for this purpose. So the states are scrambling to find other drugs.
Priorities, man.
Priorities.
Got to make sure you have those drugs to kill people.
To kill people. The state's got to be able to kill people. So they're struggling to find other drugs, and they're struggling to find other drugs that will fit the Supreme Court's definition that cannot be cruel and unusual punishment. Well, they failed that test last night. So there are, as I understand, there are three drugs. The first one is to knock the person unconscious. The second one is to sort of start the killing process, and the third one is to stop the heart.
Yep.
What happened last night is, and there are witnesses there, right?
Yep.
As there are for any execution. Yeah. They put the first drug in. About 6 minutes later or so, the prison doctor said, "Well, that's done. He's unconscious. He's out. So we can go ahead and kill him now." They started administering the second and the third drug, and then it's like the guy rises from the dead, right? He starts to lift up. He's grinding his teeth. He shouts out, "Oh man!" He's obviously in agony, and but these second and third drugs are meant to.
They're supposed to be gruesome deaths,
right? But you're not supposed to feel them because the first drug is supposed to do that trick. Well, the first drug did not do the trick. They discovered that there had been what they say vein failure, and the guy was really in agony. So they stopped. They just stopped the process, stopped administering the drugs. The guy died of a heart attack. He's 38 years old. He died of a heart attack just a few minutes later. About 20 minutes later. I think. Yeah, right. So he's suffering and writhing all that time. They lowered the blind so nobody could see this, so that just in this room, it's just torture, absolute torture. Totally cruel and unusual punishment. And they pulled the plug on this guy. He died of a heart attack, and then they just said, well, maybe we learned our lesson. We're going to wait 2 weeks before we try it again.
We're going to sit on this.
Yeah. What you just have to ask, what this means and whether we'll ever come to our senses and do what several states have done and what other countries have done, and as a nation just say we are no longer going to carry out the death penalty. You can't do it.
It's so sick, right? The act of killing somebody is such a brutal idea to begin with, right? Like these two guys.
The idea that the state can kill.
The state would do this. These two guys are bad guys, right? Like they did some really terrible things. They should go into a box and no one should ever hear from them ever again. But this idea that there's a humane way to do it, it's sick. And I hope that as terrible as this was, and you hate to hear that it happened, I hope that this draws some attention to the fact that this setup that we have now is so screwed up.
Yeah.
It's really screwed up. And you've got these companies, like you said, that don't want to do this. And the Supreme Court overruled in Oklahoma and said, like, no, these drugs are fine. We can...
Yeah, Supreme Court in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma.
Right, yeah, no.
And they just let these...
there's so many... We haven't talked about the death penalty for a long time. There's so many things about it, but that are wrong with it. As you say, it is cruel and unusual punishment, no doubt about it. It is very unevenly applied. Some states will do it, some states won't. If somebody's got enough money, they can always avoid it. I mean, it's never be evenly applied and has never been across the country. It is also kind of a final solution where there are a lot of mistakes, but you can't undo the mistakes.
Right.
I mean, countless people have been executed and found out that they were wrongly executed. They actually were innocent of the crimes for which they were executed, which is why, like in Illinois, the Republican governor in Illinois stopped the death penalty because there are so many people on death row they discovered through DNA testing should not be on death row. So many things wrong with it. I just finished reading Justice John Paul Stevens' new book called Six Amendments, where he points out that there's only, and death penalty has never been proven to be a deterrent to crime. Never.
Oh, no.
No. I mean, people in the heat of the passion or something, they're not thinking, no, I better not pull this trigger because, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have the murder rates gone down in the states where the capital punishment exists? No.
There's only one reason anymore for justifying the death penalty, and it's retribution, poor retribution, which is not a motivation for having the state kill somebody. So I hope maybe we learned a lesson last night in Oklahoma. With that, take a quick break and come back. President Obama is back at the White House. What's going on? What's on the agenda? How successful was his Asian trip? David Jackson covers the White House for USA Today. He'll be with us next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal. church needed in this moment in history to stand alongside of these protesters. Truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan joining us in studio in the next hour. Meanwhile, President Obama back from Asia, back in the White House. How successful was that trip? And what's up today and the rest of the week? David Jackson covers White House for USA Today, joining us on our newsline this morning. Hello, David.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, this is the big week for the White House Correspondents Association, huh? You know?
That's right. And all the pre-parties have already started leading into the big dinner on Saturday night.
Now, you're former
there's
president.
an actual dinner? It's not just parties?
The dinner is a party.
Oh, okay.
They've all been rolled into one over the years.
The dinner does kind of get lost in all the. You hear about all the parties, but then, but you've been president, former president of the association, David. What's the significance of this dinner? Is it, and this is the 100th anniversary of the association. So, what's it all supposed to be about?
Well, in the old days, it was just reporters and sources at the White House getting together for a night of conviviality and trade secrets and try to find out what's going on. It was just like any other club or organization has its annual membership dinner, but it's really grown and evolved into a celebrity-driven kind of a thing. I'm not really sure when. I guess it happened back in the 1980s, perhaps a little bit during the Reagan administration. Tom Selleck showed up at one of the dinners, and then it really accelerated during the Clinton years because he had a lot of contacts in the Hollywood community, and a lot of actors and actresses wanted to show up to the dinner, and that's what started happening in the 1990s, and it's just grown exponentially since then.
Who was
also the dinner is also designed to raise money for scholarships, by the way.
Right. Yeah, let's not forget that, right? And do you remember who was the entertainment when you were president?
Seth Meyers.
Seth, oh, yeah, he was great. He was great.
He was
I know I was there at that dinner, but I've been to every one since 1996, actually.
Is that right?
God, yeah. And was there a lot of pressure on you as president? I mean, to...
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody wants to... Well, especially in the Obama years, it's just been literally, I think we have 250 tables that we could... If we could fill 2,000 tables. I mean, there were literally requests for 1,000 more tickets than we actually had, so a lot of people didn't get the tickets they wanted. Some people couldn't get into the dinner at all, and even once you give people tickets to the dinner, you have to put them in the ballroom. So you always have a lot of complaints about seating and how close you are to the stage and stuff like that. It's a giant hassle. I don't envy Steve Toma this week, although I think once Saturday night comes and goes, it'll be a good experiance.
Speaking of which, David, can you get us a couple tickets? I know you know people. I mean, you can make this happen.
I wish.
Now, so the president's back, came back last night, David. And a lot of questions about what the trip was all about and about his foreign policy in general. The last news conference he had over there got a little defensive, right, when asked about about
Ed
his...
Henry of Fox News, who basically challenged his entire foreign policy. So,
is that who asked that question? I didn't know. Yeah, but the president said, it's a... What was it like? Sometimes you hit a single, sometimes you hit a double, sometimes you hit a home run. It's just sort of like steady, right?
Right. Well, he felt emboldened to defend his entire foreign policy, which in his view is based on not doing another Iraq and making sure military force is the last resort, which of course it would be because the American people really I don't think would support any kind of military action at this point, given the experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan. So in President Obama's mind, he's taking a very patient, ally-centered approach. When he's presented with a foreign policy challenge like Syria or Russia, his response is to try to group the international allies and have a unified response in terms of economic sanctions. That's his preferred approach. And what he tried to do is he tried to paint his critics, although he didn't name them, I assume he's referring to folks like John McCain, that they'd be trigger-happy and that their aggressive response will lead to this more military confrontation.
Yeah, those people whose first response is always, we got to send in the Marines. Or
right.
Yeah. And President today back on minimum wage, correct?
Minimum wage is after we. Oh, by the way, another reason he went for this trip, part of this trip he just got on was a makeup because he had to cancel Malaysia and Philippines back in the fall because of the government shutdown. And another part of the trip was to try to get Japan and South Korea to try to get along better. They're fighting out there, and the United States wants a more unified response to China. So there weren't any real good deliverables on this trip, and he knew that going in, and he didn't get a hell of a lot coming back. So it was just one of those things. It was kind of an unusual trip that was kind of cobbled together from a lot of different agendas.
Right.
But now he's back, as you say, he's back in Washington. Domestic concerns are taking center stage, and he's going to give a talk today about minimum wage. He's going to talk after the Senate. The Senate Republicans blocked his plan once again.
Yeah, I wasn't sure of the timing of the Senate vote, and his remarks are at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So do we know that they're going to vote before the president speaks?
I got a note from the Senate Republicans last night pointing out that the president's speech will come after the Senate vote, so they're expecting it around midday, and Senate Republicans are expected to filibuster the proposal that would increase the minimum wage from $7.25 to $10.10. So I think the president's remarks this afternoon, which are about 3 o'clock, are going to be more about bashing the Republicans than promoting the minimum wage bill because it will already have been disposed of.
Yeah, got it. And by the way, circling back to the dinner, the president, of course, is the chief. He's the entertainer-in-chief when it comes to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And they must put a lot, I mean, he's done, every president that I've seen has done extraordinarily well. They must put a lot of time and effort and practice into those appearances, don't they?
Well, very much so. So many of Obama's speechwriters, I think, are aspiring comedians themselves, so they contribute lines. The president contributes his own lines, and they also get a lot of outside help, including volunteer help from professional comedy writers who like to fax in their stuff. So they will literally get, I bet they've had hundreds, if not thousands, of proposed jokes, and someone on the speechwriting staff's been assigned to try to cobble it together into a comedy routine that the president will deliver. And here again, I'm expecting to do very well. He's done very well at all of the 6 previous dinners.
He has a great sense of timing, right? Yeah, he really does.
Yeah, some of these guys are better than others. He's really good.
He's good, and he laughs at his own jokes sometimes, which I think is always really funny.
That's true. He does like a Chinese. He likes to get on the press, so this is his best opportunity to fire back. And I'm sure he'll take full advantage of that.
Oh yeah, he will. But we'll have our asbestos suits on Saturday night. So
exactly.
All right, David. Thanks so much. I'll see you a little bit later at the briefing today. David Jackson, USA Today, usatoday.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Why?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Joel Anderson from Buzzfeed, sports writer, top of the next hour. Peter.
You were just talking about the White House Correspondents' Dinner coming up this weekend. We're learning some of the big names that are going to be showing up. The biggest name, in my opinion, is Hollywood's it girl right now, Lupita. Lupita Nyong'o from 12 Years a Slave is coming as a guest of Time Magazine. Also, Seattle Seahawk Richard Sherman coming with the Huffington Post. Thomson Reuters invited Darren Criss from Glee. And funny man Kevin Hart coming with NBC Universal. It's hosted by Joel McHale.
I wonder if Chris Christie's going to be there this year.
It's a good question.
He's usually there. He was Huffington Post guest last year. We'll find out. I'll be there.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
My fellow Americans. Hey, good morning. What do you say? It is Wednesday, April 30, last day of April 2014. So good to see you today on a day chock full of news. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Here on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We'll bring you up to date on all that's happening here in Washington, D.C., around the country, around the world. And we'll give you a chance to tell us what it all means to you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Donald Sterling is Silver no more. No, because NBA Commissioner Adam Silver really dropped the hammer yesterday, no doubt about it. fining him $2.5 million for those racist comments made on audio tape to his girlfriend and banning Sterling from the game for life. Now it's up to 3/4 of the owners to strip him of his ownership and force him to sell the team. It's a big win-win for the fans, for the players, for the NBA, and for the United States of America. President Obama back in the White House today. He'll give a speech on the minimum wage this afternoon, just before the Senate votes to raise the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour late this afternoon. The Supreme Court handing the EPA a major victory yesterday, upholding its tough new rules on coal-burning power plants. And out in Oklahoma, they can't get anything right, not even the death penalty. Last night, they scheduled 2 back-to-back executions. They botched the first one so badly, they had to postpone the second one. Yeah, great state of Oklahoma. All of that coming up. Don't forget, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you on board.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Banned for life. No doubt about it. Adam Silver drops the hammer. Donald Sterling out of the game. Good morning, everybody. Wednesday, April 30. It is The Bill Press Show. Here we are. Sitting here on top of the hill, on top of Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Our studio just down the street from the United States Capitol building, bringing you the news of the day from Washington, from around the country, from around the globe. And, of course, getting your comments at 866-55-PRESS. Your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Welcome to the program. Welcome to our team, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey.
Hey, good morning.
All right. Alicia Cruz there on the phones, ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, videographer, on keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. And, of course, we're celebrating the Wizards this morning.
Go Zards!
With all of our due respect to our great friends at WCPT in Chicago and Chicagoland and all the land thereabouts. I was hoping we had one more win on the Bulls last night just to keep it even, but
look,
I'm glad the Wizards won. So
Chicago has a ton of rings. Okay, they had Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
They had the greatest basketball player of all time playing on their team. Let us have this.
Well,
let us have this.
We got it.
And
of course, the playoffs almost overshadowed by what's happening with Donald Sterling, and that, of course, we'll be talking right here at the top of the hour about what that all means with Joel Anderson from Buzzfeed. Meanwhile, it has already given the late night comics lots of fodder for their shows. We'll continue to do so. Conan O'Brien last night weighing in about Donald Sterling finally found someone he could like.
Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban said he doesn't think Donald Sterling should be kicked out of the league for comments made in private conversation. Huh. After hearing this, Sterling said, "Wow, this is the first time I've liked a Cuban."
Good point. Anyhow, as I said, we'll start off with Joel Anderson from Buzzfeed. Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan joins us at the half, and then at the top of the next hour, Congresswoman Barbara Lee from California, both in studio, as well as Mark Leibovitch, the author of This Town, the book that took Washington by storm earlier this year, the real inside story of Washington, coming up right before the White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend. We'll get to all of that, but first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. One Brazilian fisherman landed quite the catch on the Amazon River earlier this week. He pulled in a piece of satellite about the size of a car.
Whoa.
On the Amazon River. People weren't sure exactly what happened, so some reporters got down there and looked around at it. Turns out it came from the UK Space Agency. They did launch a satellite last year, and it didn't make it, so the suspicion is that it landed in the Atlantic Ocean and sort of floated inland onto the Amazon, and that's how it was caught.
It wasn't a piece of Malaysian Flight 370?
Bill, that is a good question. I'm glad you asked. CNN would
breaking
have been
news.
There, so I know.
CNN, breaking news.
That's not the case. If you're in Indianapolis, Indiana, and you went to the mall last week, you got probably a little free sample of tea from Teavana. They're giving out little samples of tea. Unfortunately, you might have also gotten a case of hepatitis A.
Oh, no.
They did confirm there was an outbreak of hepatitis A at that store, and the person serving it, the free samples of tea, did have Hep A.
Oh, God.
Oh,
So
no, that's
if you're
worst.
in Indianapolis and you did go and get some of that free tea, congratulations. You got a side of hepatitis A with that. So make sure you get yourself taken care of.
Good Lord.
Ay, ay, ay.
And in Los Angeles, Bill, the porn industry is fighting back. Chase Bank has sent out several closures on accounts for porn stars. with no real explanation other than
Why?
just saying, we're closing down your account. And they noticed a couple of porn stars were talking and realized that they had all gotten letters like that. So now they are encouraging all of the porn industry, if they have an account with Chase Bank, to go ahead and close them down. Cougarland actress Veronica Avlov and Penthouse pet Tegan Presley. I never heard of these women, obviously.
Tegan what?
Tegan Presley.
Oh.
Not Tegan Presley. You lit up there for a second, man. There's also an actress who started White House Orgy, Leighton Benton. They are all bashing Chase because they had their accounts. I never heard of these women, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, these porn stars, they have their principles. They have their...
Hey, look.
Right.
Is Chase Bank like the preferred porn industry bank?
I don't know. I mean, that's certainly a good question. I don't know if there's something about... never mind. There's an ATM joke there somewhere, but I'm not going to make it.
Thank you for your restraint. 12 minutes after the hour. 12 minutes after the hour now. Yes, indeed. Everybody's waiting to see if Adam Silver would step up to the plate and hit a home run yesterday. We think he did. Joel Anderson covers sports, senior sports writer for Buzzfeed, actually joining us on our news line this morning. Hey, Joel, no doubt, Adam Silver delivered yesterday, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty universal that the moves he made yesterday have made almost everybody happy. I mean, it was about the harshest possible punishment he could levy against Donald Sterling, and I don't think anybody was upset with that today.
The one thing that remains, so we got the $2.5 million fine. We got the ban for life. Let's talk about that. Ban for life means exactly what? I mean, that means he can no longer even show up anywhere?
Yeah, now, see, that's going to probably be complicated, but yeah, it means that he's not really allowed to interact with the team. He's not allowed to be involved in transactions. He's not allowed to come to games, which, certainly for him, who's been, photographed on the the sidelines for years, what matters to a guy like that. So yeah, that's definitely part of it. One of the complications is that, for instance, Donald Sterling paid for a $50 million practice facility for the Clippers. I mean, he used his money to do that. Well, can you tell him not to show up in a building he paid for that they use? So that's a complication. But yeah, for the most part, he's not permitted to be involved with with the franchise in any meaningful way.
Now, there's one other piece of this, of course, which is the sale of the team. Here is Adam Silver yesterday announcing what he intends to do about that. Here he is.
I will urge the Board of Governors to exercise its authority to force a sale of the team, and will do everything in my power to ensure that happens.
So, Joel, what authority does the board have, and will he have the votes?
He has fairly broad authority to do that. The NBA's, there's language within the NBA's constitution that gives him permission to remove Sterling and to call for this sort of vote. Now, whether or not he can actually rip the team from Sterling is sort of in dispute, but he certainly does have the authority to call for a vote. And I mean, you got to think that, Adam Silver would not pursue this sort of line of resolution if he didn't think he had to vote. So he'll need 23 of the 30 owners to vote to approve to take the franchise away from Donald Sterling. And I mean, like I said, it seems reasonable that he has those votes lined up.
I would think so too. And the one that was a little squirrely, it looked like, was Mark Cuban, but he came out yesterday and said he agreed 100% with what Adam Silver did.
Well, he really didn't have a choice. I mean, it's really hard to sort of align yourself with Donald Sterling yesterday. I mean, the comments that he'd made previously were pretty heavily criticized. But I mean, I think you got to think about a guy like Mark Cuban and a lot of these other guys. I mean, this is an unprecedented punishment, and they're sort of in a position that, hey, a secret recording that may or may not be illegal under state law is being used against them to rip their one of their primary assets from them. And I guess if you're really wealthy like that and you're in that club, I mean, it is something to consider that you may not want to set that sort of precedent.
Right.
Let me ask you a question about what these athletes might be going through right now, because we talk a lot about the situation, and this is the guy that runs their team. This is their boss, essentially. What's going through the heads of these players, right, as they see this unfold? And, they had to go on and play a game in the middle of all this before they had any kind of resolution. What's going through their heads at this point?
Well, I mean, I guess there's a couple of ways to look at it. One, I mean, you get to this level of professionalism that you sort of get used to the idea that, there's not a clear and direct path to the floor. Distractions are sort of a way of life. If you're a professional athlete, you sort of deal with that. And I guess you saw some of that last night, that the Clippers still went out and played pretty well and won their games, and the Warriors went out and gave a good acquitting of themselves, and they did well too. But I think that if you listen to some of the things that Donald Sterling said, I mean, some of the more problematic language that he said, that I give these guys cars, I give them money. It's sort of jarring because it sort of crystallizes for them how their boss sees them. He sees them as somebody that he gives trinkets to, and that's not sort of the relationship that I imagine these guys, certainly that have like a really that are highly valued assets in terms of their sport. They're like particularly qualified, particularly uniquely talented in their field, and there's this guy saying, "Hey, I give them money to, I give them things so they can play basketball." That's not quite the business relationship I imagine that they spend a lot of time thinking, the dynamic they think they have with their owner. So that has to be a little bit jarring.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask you, I know this is an off-the-wall question, but it just intrigues me. So they banned Donald Sterling from the Game for Life and from showing up at any games and everything. What about his loudmouth wife?
Well, yeah, I mean, that is part of the complication here, right?
Yeah, right.
They're still trying to figure out. I mean, they're not divorced. It's not as simple as him transferring ownership.
She's been defending him, and she's been showing up at games. She was in Oakland last Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. She was at the game last night. She was in a suite. Yeah, she wasn't. Apparently, she wasn't. Clearly, she wasn't on the sideline, but. She was in a suite last night. This is still an asset that's within their family. Now, they could get divorced, and that would complicate the transference of ownership here. That would be, I mean, and given how litigious the Sterlings are, it's certainly something I imagine that they're considering. And looking at their relationship, it's not like they have a traditional arrangement, right?
No.
To put it mildly.
That is the understatement of the day, right? So I do want to come back to this ownership thing because I'm intrigued. I mean, in this country, you own a company. How can anybody force you to sell your company unless there are rules that you agree to when you buy a basketball team? Is that the answer? That when you buy a basketball team, you agree if I do something really wrong, 3/4 of my fellow owners can force me to sell my team? Because there's a report this morning that Sterling is saying that Clippers are not for sale.
Oh yeah, it seems pretty clear that he's going to fight this, and that the NBA is in for an epic legal battle. I mean that's one of the ways that though you have to consent to get into the club, that you sort of agree to these really broad rules, and it would be easy for Adam Silver to say, "Hey, look, your comments." I mean, which have even drawn comments from President Obama. Like this is, I mean, obviously President Obama is a basketball fan, but. I mean, these comments have traveled that far, and it'd be really easy to argue that, like, these comments have deeply harmed the NBA and its relationship with players, sponsors, and fans. So, like, it'd be really difficult for Sterling to say, "Hey, look, that my conduct wasn't detrimental to the NBA," and that's the sort of language that's baked into the Constitution, where the NBA has these sorts of powers. And I mean, it'd be real easy for Donald Sterling to say, "Hey, wait, what are you guys talking about? I mean, you have an owner in Orlando who's poured millions of dollars into anti-gay marriage initiatives, and is a pretty widely known homophobe. You've got an owner in Cleveland who was involved in many of the subprime mortgage business, and it was involved in the derivative machine that helped destroy our economy. Like, you could say, well, I mean, clearly you would think that that doesn't reflect very well on the NBA and its owners. But
right,
why are you picking me out just because this is easy? So.
Yeah, it is complicated, and it's not going to be easy to resolve this whole thing. But again, Adam Silver came through yesterday with flying colors. Hey, Joel, great to talk to you this morning. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Hey, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
We love BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Attention.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full-time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're gonna do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory, and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, a lawyer? I said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity. And one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him. Because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
is the Bill Press Show.
All right. 26 minutes after the hour, Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan, a good, strong Democrat from Michigan, joins us in studio in the next half hour. Congresswoman Barbara Lee from California in studio at the top of the next hour, talking with Joel Anderson there about the big news of the day, not just the sports news of the day. And this is a victory. Adam Silver is banning Donald Sterling for life from the NBA. Not just a victory for the fans and the players and the Clippers and the NBA, but a victory for what we stand for as Americans, for all Americans, a victory. Adam Silver yesterday saying that Donald Sterling's comments just contradict everything that America and the NBA in particular stand for.
Sentiments of this kind are contrary to the principles of inclusion and respect that form the foundation of our diverse, multicultural, and multi-ethnic league.
Boy, I got to say, this was his first test of leadership as head as head of the NBA. After David Stern had disappointed people for a long time by not taking action against not only Sterling but other players. Other owners, right?
Yeah,
done some offensive things. So everybody's saying, does Adam Silver have any backbone? And boy, he showed it yesterday.
He delivered. He really delivered.
Really
he could not have been stronger.
And he had to. And the players met with him and told him, we expect you to take the strongest possible action, and he did. He also took a moment in his news conference yesterday to apologize for those great players who had made the NBA, built the NBA, made it what it is.
To them, and pioneers of the game, like Earl Lloyd, Chuck Cooper, Sweetwater Clifton, the great Bill Russell, and particularly Magic Johnson, I apologize.
I think it's a little messed up. Someone took your nickname, Sweetwater Press.
They did. And by the way, Magic Johnson himself yesterday put out a statement saying, on Twitter actually, Commissioner Silver showed great leadership in banning LA Clippers owner Donald Sterling for life. Even Al Gore weighed in with a tweet congratulating Adam Silver. Congressman Dan Kildee, when we come back.
Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis. Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, "Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about your next venture."
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. You know, I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org. to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
On TV and online, this is The Bill Press Show.
Here we are, 33 minutes after the hour now on Wednesday morning, April 30. God, this month flew by, didn't it? Here we go.
Yeah.
It's all over today, April 30, and we are brought to you today by the Laborers International Union of North America. All the good men and women of the Laborers Union under President Terry O'Sullivan, a great leader for this country. Building a Better America, and that's their website, LIUNA, L-I-U-N-A, buildsamerica.org. Check it out, and we thank them for their strong support for many years of progressive talk radio. The Congress is back in town, and today they're holding a hearing on something that you don't hear often talked about in this Congress anymore, alas, and that is poverty. Poverty in this country and what to do about it. Congressman Dan Kildee is on the House Budget Committee. He from the 5th District of Michigan.
That's right.
A good friend of the program, joining us back in the studio this morning. Hey, Congressman, good to see you.
Thank you, Bill. It's good to be back.
Did you have a good 2 weeks break?
Yeah, it was nice. I stayed home the whole time and reconnected with a lot of my friends. Spent time going up and down my district. Caught a cold.
Oh,
things you do in Michigan.
Right. And you come back loaded for action, I guess, this Congress, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, what can we expect? What great monumental legislation can we expect from this Congress in this?
You've got to adjust your expectations, Bill. I'm afraid.
Lower them?
Yes. That's the problem. We're not really moving anything. If we just allowed the process to work the way it was designed, we would produce legislation, a lot of which I would disagree with and vote against, but we're not even doing that. We just lurch from crisis to crisis and really have set aside the regular order of the legislative process. And too many voices are locked out of the discussion as a result.
But what you mentioned is the way things used to be, right? I mean, not everybody got everything they wanted,
right?
But you at least... it's like a jump ball, right? Threw the ball up, and then people went at it, and you debated it, and boom, and made some amendments or something, and come out with a product, yes or no. But now
problems.
it's just it's replaced by, unless the majority party agrees on everything, then they will not even bring it up for a vote. Won't even allow a debate or a discussion on it.
It's a tricameral legislature. You have the Republican conference. That's one body of Congress, the way they view it.
Yeah.
Then the entire Congress, and then the Senate. And a bill has to pass all three. And that's what's wrong with the way Speaker Boehner, who's legacy, unfortunately for him, will be that of a very weak speaker. But his legacy will be that he failed to understand that he was the Speaker of the whole House,
right,
and not the Speaker of the Republican Conference.
Right. You know, one Republican congressman told me that he thought Boehner had been the worst speaker ever, and certainly the worst that he in all the years that he'd been in Congress. But now, famously, Speaker Boehner speaking to I think it was a Rotarian club or something back home.
He had a moment of truth.
A moment of truth, right. But he was making fun of and mocking his fellow Republicans for, Peter, you want to do that imitation?
Oh, don't make me do this! That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
You sounded just like him.
That
Scary.
was Boehner imitating the Republicans caucus who don't want to take up immigration, which
Right.
seemed to say, man, that he was going to come back here determined, we're going to pass immigration reform.
Yeah, and it wasn't clear to me what his goal was, if it was to try to cajole them or embarrass them into action, or if that was the signal of the beginning of the end of his speakership, because there's been a real blowback from
has
the hard
there?
right.
Yeah. They didn't like being made fun of.
They're not happy.
But yesterday he seemed to back away, right? In fact, we've got this. Here he is explaining to reporters, kind of dismissing this whole thing. Here's Speaker Boehner. Yes.
Our members know me, all right? Yeah. And but sometimes I can rib people just a little too much sometimes. This wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, so they know me. They know I was just kidding.
Right.
But
nobody's ever kidding.
That's a good rule for life, I think, right? Not just for the Congress. But the fact is, it ain't that difficult, right? All he would have to do to get if he's serious about getting immigration reform passed, would be have a vote.
Look, he controls the most important committee in Congress. That's the Rules Committee. They have incredible power to determine what goes to the floor. We have legislation which would have bipartisan support, whether it's immigration or my unemployment insurance bill.
Yep.
If we took it to the floor this morning, it would pass. Even the comprehensive immigration reform, the House version that we have, which takes away the huge border security investment that the Senate inserted into what was an otherwise okay immigration bill, that would pass.
Right.
But it doesn't go to the floor, and it's hard to find anybody else to blame other than the Speaker, because he controls that Rules Committee, and they could decide at any point and in any time. They've done it before. They've done it with big budget deals. They've done it with spending bills. They could bring what they want to the floor.
Now, on the unemployment insurance, so your bill is basically the same as the Senate bill?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Now, it's obviously this is not what we would ultimately desire. I was hoping for a full-year extension. But
Yeah,
the Senate
right.
did a 5-month extension, retroactive to December 28. I filed the same bill the evening that the Senate voted, and I think now we've got maybe 140, 150 co-sponsors on it. We'll probably have nearly every Democrat. There are some Republicans who want to see this pass.
Sure.
That night, 7 members of the Republican conference sent a letter to the Speaker asking that the bill, that they didn't specifically mention my bill, but the Senate bill be brought up.
Now, it's reported that Senator Dean Heller from Nevada has come to the Speaker, either is meeting with him or plans to meet with him or has already met with him, but that his message is to John Boehner, just call this up for a vote.
Right.
Call this up for a vote, because he knows running for re-election in Nevada, it's important to him to be able to say, yes, we care about the middle-class workers. So
no question about it. And this is one of those things.
Is that going to have any impact?
It has some, but again, this is a case where I think if the Speaker were to follow his own instincts, I mean, after all, he's from Ohio. This is a place where you expect to have some understanding about what's going on in the economy. It's it's not much different than my home state of Michigan.
Sure, same.
There are Republican people who are unemployed, and they are experiencing the same problems. They're going to lose their houses. They're going to lose their cars. They'll split their families up in order to keep them under a roof. They are going to have to make the same hard choices. And it's one of the problems with the debate, and particularly the debate over poverty, is the sense that people can sort of consign poverty to liberal Democrats. And we're the only folks who experience these things. And the truth of the matter is there needs to be an awakening in this country, that we've had a growing gulf between the rich and the poor, between the powerful and the powerless, and it is not divided by partisan lines.
Mm-hmm.
This is an American condition that we're going to have to take on, and it's got to. We actually have to get past partisanship in order to deal with it.
Right. I mean, as you point out, there are even in red districts, there are long-term unemployed.
There are.
Even in red districts, there are people who are living in poverty on the minimum wage.
The tough thing is, the unemployed folks out there, they're not organized. There's not a National Association of the Unemployed. They don't have there's not a mechanism to organize. So I think we, as their representatives, are responsible to raise their voices. And, and the speaker has pretty much said that these folks are invisible to them. And we need to make sure that is not going to be the case. We have to make them visible. And there are 2 million people in this country whose livelihoods are at risk, who could lose everything because Congress is unwilling to act. I mean, what if there was a storm that hit some part of the country and 2 million people were displaced?
Yeah, right.
We'd act overnight. Now, it would take all the Democrats and a handful of Republicans like the way we did with Superstorm Sandy. But we would act. Mm-hmm. That's what we're facing now.
And so we'll take a quick break and then come back. But the Budget Committee hearing on poverty, right, is today?
It is. It'll be interesting.
Particularly with Paul Ryan as chairman of that committee. Congressman Dan Kildee here, and we'll talk. Your comments welcome at 866-55-PRESS. Find out what we can expect the House to do, not just talk about, but what to do about poverty when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Inventory.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
14 minutes before the top of the hour, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, good Democrat from California, Oakland, California, will be here in studio with us in the next hour. She's a member of the House Budget Committee. So is Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan, who is here in studio with us right now. And Congressman, it's great to see that the House Budget Committee is holding a hearing on poverty later today. There's only thing wrong with that picture, and that is, from my perspective, the chairman of your committee is Congressman Paul Ryan. So whatever he's saying about poverty, his policies don't seem to follow.
Well, I mean, this is part of the problem. I think part of the reason that the hearing is being held is that Mr. Ryan got himself wrapped around his own axle a few weeks ago when he started talking about poverty in urban communities, and I think, had revealed his true sense of this whole thing.
About just African American.
Yeah.
He didn't say that, but men standing around the street corners.
It's consistent with what we hear from a lot of the other members, particularly other members of the Budget Committee, that poverty and unemployment is a choice, and that there is a whole subset of Americans who choose this path because they know that the government will be there. And that just is so disconnected with reality. So I guess the subtitle to today's hearing could be, if we keep saying this over and over again, maybe somebody will believe it, that somehow this this condition of poverty is something that people aspire to. They really believe it.
Clive Bundy believes it.
They ought to, if Paul Ryan wanted to call somebody to testify consistent with many of the values of the Republican Party, Clive Bundy would be a witness this morning.
Yeah, right.
Clive and Bundy would be there. So the problem is we have to sort of examine the premise of their position. I understand that they may not want to support these programs, but they can't make a nexus or create a nexus between their false facts and their conclusions. They need to be honest about it. Their facts would imply that the reason that we're struggling economically in this country is that people at the lower end of the economic spectrum make too much money, have too big a safety net, and the people at the top of the economic spectrum are being held back, that there's not enough capital being deployed, that they're not doing well enough. Where do they get the data that supports that? When real earnings have gone down in this country, Wall Street's doing pretty well. Just look at the numbers.
Sure.
And the notion that somehow it's the financial industry who's being held back with too much regulation, and it's Wall Street that can't get capital deployed when they're doing extraordinarily well at the expense of those who are trying to earn a living wage, and then they want to pull what little support they're willing to provide to those folks, like the SNAP program. They want to cut $125 billion out of that in order to fund tax breaks for the wealthiest Americans. The problem in this country is not that poor people are doing too well. The problem is that we really have never completed or really fought this war on poverty.
But, you mentioned war on poverty. I was going to say that Paul Ryan is also the man, one of the leaders, who says that the war on poverty, on the 50th anniversary of the war on poverty, he said the war on poverty has failed because there are still 40-some million poor people in this country. Right. How many would there be if we didn't have a war on poverty?
That's the point. Just because we haven't done all we should have done doesn't mean that things that we have been doing haven't been helpful. And, it's a bit of a misnomer to call it a war on poverty. It's been a series of battles, but also an unfortunate series of retreats. And when we look back to the early 1980s, even some of the reforms in the 90s that President Clinton signed, some of those have not proven to be, effective. And I think we have to be honest with ourselves that we haven't had a consistent policy in this country that says that there's a floor of decency that we're going to ensure will be there. And we will never let people fall below that, whether it's through unemployment or through, SNAP benefits or worker training programs, those ladders of opportunity. They've only been there from time to time in a way that's consistent. And the notion that we can then take this conclusion that, well, look, there are still poor people in America, so what we're doing to help them must not be working, forgetting that unemployment insurance alone has kept 13 million Americans out of poverty in the last decade. What would have happened to them if we weren't there to provide that safety net? The 40 million would be 53 million.
Yeah, sure. And look at Social Security. I mean, how many seniors would be living in poverty today if it weren't for there's so many of them. Right. That's all they've got is Social Security.
Right. I mean, the notion, the ideology that they proposed, if it had been in play in 1937, and it probably was, would say that, if we provide Social Security, that's going to make our older Americans complacent.
Nothing but moochers.
Right. Right. I mean, they can't have their own facts. They can have their own ideology, but the way you normally do things is that you look at a set of facts and from those derive a conclusion. What they have done is started with a conclusion. In like today's hearing, he will bring witnesses in search of facts to support a conclusion that he and others have already come to.
But his budget, again, poverty is, the Pope, right, at one level has been saying we've got to get back on focusing on the level of the amount of people living in poverty
he
around
must
the
have
world.
read Matthew 25.
Yeah, good point. And so it's nice to see some new attention, I think, to the number of poor and in this country and the threat. But if you look at the Ryan budget, he would, rather than come up with new programs to help the poor or to reinforce our support for, he would dismantle existing programs, the few that we have.
And here's the most important point.
Anybody point out that inconsistency? I guess that's up to you and Barbara Lee, right?
I guess so. Here and others, there are many others. Barbara's been a tremendous champion on this issue. It's really important that when we talk about this issue, however, we point out that not only does the Ryan budget dismantle those important programs to keep people from basically disappearing into the shadows, but they do so in order to pay for even more breaks for the people who already have the system rigged in their favor. Big tax breaks for the wealthiest, deregulation of Wall Street. I mean, we had the chair of the SEC before the Financial Services Committee yesterday. One of the questions I asked her is that we have regulations in sort of post financial crash era, but the Republicans want to continue to take resources away from the SEC so they can't enforce those regulations. What happens? There's no cop on the street. So their notion,
which is how we got in that mess in the first place.
Right. So their notion is not just to reduce the support that's there for people who really need it, or for create these ladders of opportunity out of poverty into the middle class, but to do so in order to fund more and more breaks, more and more loopholes for the people who are already making billions of dollars and aren't satisfied with even that.
And the corporations who are getting the big tax breaks and taking their money overseas and on and on. Right. So
it's pretty sad.
Well, you got a challenge there, Congressman.
It will be. We got great allies, and I'm standing right behind Barbara Lee on this one. She's been a great champion.
Yeah. Well, we'll hear more from her at the top of the next hour. I'm glad you're there fighting the good fight, not just for the people of Michigan, for all of us.
Yeah,
thanks, Congressman. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And we'll be back. Tell you what the president's up to today. First day back in the White House, and he's got a busy day ahead of him.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, I'm very excited about our third hour coming up. Sorry to lose you on Free Speech TV, but don't forget, you got the option. Jump over to our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. In the next hour, Congresswoman Barbara Lee Firebrand from California will be here in studio with us. And then we'll be talking with Mark Leibovitch, who wrote this great book about Washington, This Town, New York Times bestseller. And Mark will bring us up to date on all the latest here in our nation's capital. Hour number 3 coming up.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right? 5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, at the top of the next hour, Congresswoman Barbara Lee will be here in the studio with us. And then Mark Leibovitch from the New York Times, author of the very controversial book, This Town, inside look at Washington, D.C., will be along as well. President Obama back in the White House today. His meetings this morning at the White House. This afternoon, he will be delivering remarks in the East Room of the White House on the minimum wage, responding to what is expected to be a Republican shutdown or shoot of the minimum wage in a big vote about midday in the Senate. Republicans are determined to block that, and the president will respond this afternoon. We have our briefing with Press Secretary Jay Carney at the White House at 1 o'clock today. We'll get into all the news of the day and get her comments on Donald Sterling and more from Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org. to let us know your thoughts.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to, not eligible for Social Security. So the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
The nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Banned for life. That's the word from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver yesterday. No doubt about it. Dropping the hammer on Donald Sterling. Good for him. And good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, last day of April, April 30, 2014. So good to see you today. We are coming to you live from your nation's capital. Our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, keeping our eye on what's going on here in Washington, around the country, around the globe. We'll tell you all about it on your local progressive talk radio station, and we'll tell you all about it on our video stream, TawkrTV worldwide. You can catch us. Just go to youtube.com/TawkrTV. Great to see you this morning, and we are so pleased to welcome a good friend, a long-time good friend from California days, now representing Oakland in the United States Congress, Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Hey, Congresswoman, nice to see you.
Good morning. Glad to be with you, Bill.
You know, but every time you come here, it's raining, so we're not sure we're going to invite you back, you know.
Why are you doing this to us?
Why
do you do
I'm
this
bringing
to
some
us?
of the Bay Area weather. Don't you miss the Bay Area?
I know, that's it. But leave it out there, right? Anyhow, but it's so good to see you. Rain or not.
Yeah,
right?
well, we need the rain, though, this year. It's
now-
been quite a dry season.
I know.
We're in drought conditions.
And
so.
we had all day yesterday, all day today, and I think all day tomorrow. Like 3 days of rain, so we're going to get our share anyhow. And you know the team here, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Alicia Cruz there has got the phones covered. And Cyprian Bolding, these cameras and the lights, that's his job, the videographer.
You got a great team.
Yeah, got it all covered.
Cyprian also has to carry the role of number one cheerleader for the Washington Wizards.
For the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, no one does it better.
Yeah.
Watch it. Is the door?
You got to watch the door when you start talking about the Wizards. Cyprian sometimes.
Oh, no. Here he comes. Here's the door lock.
Be careful, earthquakes on Bay Area.
That's right. Congressman, it's okay.
Indeed. So we want to talk about the Donald Sterling thing, you know, Congresswoman, but it's already provided a lot of fodder for the late night comics, of course. David Letterman couldn't resist last night because the Spider-Man movie comes out this weekend, so there are already certain reviews. Here's David Letterman last night.
Friday, Spider-Man, look out. You going to go see Spider-Man? Of course. You going to take the whole family?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's a great family movie.
Yeah. And the early reviews about Spider-Man are already in.
Yeah.
Take a look at the early reviews. Spider-Man.
Rolling Stone's Peter Travers calls it a dazzling summer blockbuster. The New York Times' Janet Maslin says action, thrills, emotion. It's a winner. Donald Sterling, owner of the LA Clippers, says it bothers me that you want to broadcast Spider-Man to the whole world and don't bring a half-man, half-spider to my games.
Whatever you do, don't bring them into my games. You know, but all laughing aside, let's just start right there, Congressman. I mean, can you believe, this guy in his position uttering comments like this?
Look, knowing this guy's history, yes.
Really? Yeah.
You know, and it's just really a shame and disgrace that he's been allowed to get away with
For so
his,
long.
attitudes and behavior for all of these years.
Yeah. But it caught up with him.
It caught up with, it usually does.
Yeah.
But, you know, how many people has he hurt? You know, how many people has he discriminated against? How many people has he really, in many ways, destroyed?
What I'm impressed with is how fast, how strongly, and how swiftly the NBA, this time, under this new leadership, acted yesterday.
Absolutely, and I am so proud of the players. I mean, they acted with dignity, they acted with strength, with power, and they were very determined that action would be taken. And so I just have to salute and applaud them. These primarily African-American men stood up to this evil kind of activity, words, behavior, and attitudes. And hopefully now this phase soon will be over with this man. But I hope that this is the harshest sentence, if not I would like to see a harsher sentence, whatever that would be, punishment.
Yeah, I mean, Silver said, and by the way, just mentioning the players, Chris Paul, leader of the players, did a great job. Kevin Johnson,
yes,
our friend from Sacramento,
I know the mayor very well. He was
right
wonderful.
in there, played a major role in, and they told Adam Silver, we want you to act, and we want you to act as strongly as you possibly can. And from what I know, that's a maximum fine he could give, the maximum punishment, and now he's asking the owners rather, to take the next step, which is to actually just boot him out.
I hope the owners do the right thing and do that.
And you talk about the Bay Area, and you talk about how the players stepped up. That story that came out last night.
I was just going to ask you about that story.
Golden State Warriors said that they had a plan in place.
Your team.
Adam Silver did not act and give the maximum punishment. They were going to show up to last night's game against the Clippers. They were going to go through the warm-ups. They were going to show up for a jump ball, and as soon as the ball went up, they were going to walk off the court.
I love my team. That's the spirit of Oakland, the spirit of the Bay Area.
Seriously.
I've been to several games this year. I would have done the same thing with them.
Yeah, isn't that great? Right.
Yeah, so I'm very proud of the Warriors.
So then, Congresswoman, so you've got Sterling, and there's been some action taken, but his comments came right on the heels of rancher Cliven Bundy in Nevada, who is still out there, and and he's held up as a folk hero by Fox News and Rand Paul and Dean Heller, and his comments were just as disgusting.
They were just as disgusting. Well, look, Bill O'Reilly called me a notorious race hustler. You have to really understand that while we've come a long way in this country, we've got a long way to go. And race is a factor. Racism is alive and well in America.
Race hustler?
Yeah, he called me a notorious race hustler after I talked about Paul Ryan's comments about inner city men. And I said, this what Chairman Ryan said to me, it was code word for black. Which
of course it was.
And so, as a result of that, Bill O'Reilly called me a notorious race hustler, a pinhead. I mean, all these horrible names when you want to talk about issues that need to be addressed in this country so we can move on. And so people oftentimes say you're playing the race card when you want to talk about race to bring some resolve to the very serious legacy that we still have in our country, and that is the legacy of slavery, segregation, racism. Come a long way? Yes, long way to go.
Well, particularly if you look, there's an interesting article in Huffington Post that caught my attention this morning. And the headline is, I think sort of says it all. If the Supreme Court says racism is pretty much over, why are so many people still being so racist? I mean, so you have this Supreme Court, which seems to live in another world, right? They say we don't need affirmative action anymore.
That's why electing a president is so important, who will appoint Supreme Court justices who understand the history of race in America. I mean, come on, Bill, when I started school, because I was black, I couldn't go to public schools. Now, that wasn't in the not-so-distant past.
Right.
My dad was in the military, lieutenant colonel. I remember vividly him in his uniform with his wife, my mother, my two sisters going to try to eat at restaurants, being denied, saying, I'm sorry, but we don't serve, and they'd use the N-word. So come on, this is just hopefully a few years ago. I'm not that old.
Right, yeah.
And so
no, this is in our lifetime. I went to a segregated school in Delaware, and, I remember, and there was the colored school outside of town, about a mile out of town. And that's where those kids had to walk, and we had our school right in town.
Yeah, so how could the Supreme Court believe that we're done with that?
Right.
This is a post-racial era. So that's why election of a Democratic president is so important.
They say we don't need affirmative action. We don't need anything to protect voting rights anymore, right?
Oh, that's gone. And money in politics,
Sure.
Corporations are people, so corporations can do whatever they want to do in terms of eroding our democracy.
So let's start with, we talked last week about income inequality and in this country, and this ever-growing gap. Even the Pope is talking about this now worldwide, but in this country, the president's been talking about this ever-growing gap between the very, very wealthiest people in this country and not necessarily, yes, the poor, but also the middle class and working class Americans. A new study came out yesterday. I mean, what was it, Peter? The gap between what a CEO makes and your average worker makes is 331 to 1 now. Between a CEO and a minimum wage worker is 774 to 1. Now, that's just average workers. Yesterday, a new study came out about the gap between what white people make and what African Americans make in this country.
Let me respond. First, two things. On the gap between the CEOs and the minimum wage or regular worker, which probably is low-wage worker.
Yeah.
We need to deal with that because you know what? Taxpayers are subsidizing these CEOs. I have legislation that would say, okay, you pay your CEO more than 25 times the lowest wage worker, then you don't get a tax break at all. Right now, companies get tax breaks. So I'm trying to get that legislation at least rally around that.
25 to 1,
25 to 1, no tax break. Okay. Because otherwise, we're subsidizing this.
Now,
taxpayer.
I'm sure that's, knowing the process, that's negotiable. Even if it were 51 to 1, it would be an improvement,
That's right. That's right.
But
so
somewhere in there ought to be a limit.
There should be a limit, and taxpayers shouldn't subsidize this. Secondly, as it relates to the racial gap, again, we've got to talk about income inequality generally.
Yes.
We have to look at it for different segments of our population. In the African American community, for example, yesterday the Center for Global Policy Solutions came out with a report, verifiable data, the racial wealth gap, African Americans. African Americans, 6 cents to 7 cents per $1 of white American in net worth. Right now, African American net worth, $5,600, white net worth, $113,000.
Whoa.
There's a huge racial dimension to income inequality. Once again, we cannot sweep this under the rug. And a lot of it has to do with discrimination in workplace, in hiring, in training, in education.
I was just going to say education is a good deal. Educational opportunities,
That's
right?
Opportunities. So there are barriers to opportunity. So when we talk about opportunity, we've got to talk about opportunity for everyone, which means reducing and eliminating the barriers for people of color. And so this report is extremely important. And once again, we cannot talk about poverty and income inequality without talking about communities of color. African American community, for example, 27% of the African American community live below the poverty line. That's outrageous. Latino community, same thing. And so even though we're 13% of the population.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody talk about these numbers at all. I mean, this is a brand new report, just came out yesterday, but just makes it, all the more important, right, that we do something about this. And I mean, look, and some of the few steps we can take today, they're going to vote on the minimum wage in the Senate, right? Republicans are going to block it.
Yeah, millions of people would be lifted out of poverty if we have a minimum wage. Of course, I support a living wage, but we have to move toward a living wage by raising the minimum wage. Unemployment compensation. When you look at the fact that now in California, 514,000 people have lost their emergency unemployment compensation as of December. Why? Because Republicans just refuse to extend it.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying, under Leader Pelosi's tremendous leadership, trying to get this brought to the floor of the House. But Speaker Boehner so far won't even allow us to vote on emergency unemployment compensation, where now 3 million people in our country are living on the edge, on the brink, have fallen by the wayside.
Even though we have a bill from the Senate that's in the House, and all people would have to do is
bring it up.
Now, we're going to take a break, but Congressman, I have to tell you, I think your hair looks really great this morning here. But, you know, as good as it looks, you might not be able to serve in the military.
And my dad would be so upset if he wanted me to serve in the military and I wanted to, and look how I look.
And this is reported this morning, the latest about the Defense Department's rules regarding the hairstyles of African American women when we come back with Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. you'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
This is the Bill Press Show.
24 minutes after the hour, Mark Leibovitch from the New York Times and This Town. Coming up in the next half hour right now, Congresswoman Barbara Lee from California here in studio with us. And Congresswoman, the headline in the New York Times this morning, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel seeks a review of policies on hair. These are Army regulations existing now affecting how African-American women wear their hair. And this is a result of a letter that you and members of the Congressional Black Caucus wrote to the Defense Department. What's the beef here? What's the story?
Sure. Well, there had been a regulation, actually, I believe it's in place now, that was very offensive to African-American women in terms of hairstyles, saying that we have to comply with certain uniform standards, which mean, certain types of natural hair would not be allowed. I mean, the regulation went way too far.
No, it says no cornrows, twist, and dreadlocks.
Can you believe that? It's like, what in the world is going on over there? And so, to the credit of the 16 women of the Congressional Black Caucus under the leadership, the really bold leadership of our chair, Marcia Fudge, we all wrote and sent the secretary a letter and said, this is offensive. It goes too far. Do something. And so, to his credit, he wrote back and said that they're looking not only at the Army reg, but at all of the services to look at what offensive kind of regulations may be there and what could be actually really discriminatory against African American women. So I think that was a very forthright response.
Yeah, good for you and good for Chuck Hagel. You're also getting some props from a little different front, Peter.
I got to tell you, I listen to the Radio Lab podcast every week, or whenever it comes out. It doesn't come out weekly, but the most recent one, they did some work with Buzzfeed. It's called 60 Words, and it's all about the AUMF, the authorization for use of military force, that came about in the days after 9/11, and you were the only member of Congress who voted against it. And it was so well done how they chronicled why you made that decision and how you came to that decision and where we are now. And I just want to tell you, I think it was well done. I think it was great. The insights that you provided into that were fantastic. And explain sort of where you were there and where we are now, I think.
Sure. And thank you very much for that. In BuzzFeed, they did do a very thorough, I think, very objective job. And then that resolution came before us, 60 words. And it was all the president shall use force against any organization, nation, individual.
Wide open.
Totally.
Right.
Blank check. But not only President Bush, but any subsequent president. And it's been used now, drone attacks, Guantanamo, domestic spying. It's a horribly overreaching, dangerous resolution. And it was then the moment of the horrific attacks when the country was naturally in mourning. I was angry. My chief of staff cousin was Wanda Green, Flight 93. She was killed, unfortunately. They're heroes to all of us because that plane was coming in this direction. So our office was very much sad and mourning and angry. And so naturally we want to respond. Quite naturally, we're not going to allow this to take place. But there's an appropriate response to terrorism. And in fact, as elected officials, we were elected to rise above the fray and be rational in our response. And so I just could not, in a rational way, 3 days later, vote for a blank check that could be used forever.
Total unlimited use of force.
It was
Congressman, you were right then, and you're right today. Absolutely, and so great to have you there fighting a good fight on so many fronts, and we just covered a couple of them this morning.
Well, thank you.
Now you got to go into this hearing on poverty today and raise hell.
I sure am. Chairman Ryan wants to say that the 50-year war on poverty didn't work. We're saying it did. Millions more would be in poverty, and in fact, we're going to protect the safety net.
It's the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 33 minutes now after the hour. It's Wednesday morning, last day of April 30. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, here on your local progressive talk radio station all across this great land of ours, and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV, brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their colorful international president, Leo Gerard. The United Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing over 1.2 million active and retired members. You can find out more about their good work. They're the ones that got the students together at Northwestern University to vote for a union last week. We still don't know the result of that vote, but they're doing good work all across the country. Check out their website, usw.org. This is what we call prom weekend in Washington, D.C., our senior prom, where we all act like giddy teenagers, throwing parties and getting all dressed up for the big weekend, the White House Correspondents Association dinner. The man who is famous now for unrobing, unmasking, mocking official Washington, D.C. in his book, This Town, Mark Leibovitch from the New York Times joins us in studio this morning. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Bill. It's good to be here.
Thank you. This is a hardcover signed by Mark, and the paperback is out
yesterday. The paperback version is out yesterday. Much cheaper than the hardcover. We love the hardcover. If you want to buy the hardcover, you can still buy the hardcover. But the paperback's out now. There's a new afterword which details the entire sort of circus and premise-affirming activities that I've undergone in the last 10 months since this book came out.
To sell the book, it does make you kind of ashamed, right?
Absolutely.
After you write a book,
well,
you have to go out and hustle.
Well, that is the first line of the afterword, which is that I think I'm quoting myself right accurately. It's I suppose when you write a book about a group of shameless self-promoters, it's inevitable that you become one yourself. Right? So
we all do that from time to time. Anyhow, we'll have a link to This Town on our website. And of course, you can get it at all the regular places, your local bookstore or at Amazon.com or whatever. So, Mark, tell us why is this White House Correspondents' Dinner such a big deal, or is it?
Well, it certainly is a big deal, and it's become a big deal. The question is why, and has it reached a tipping point well beyond its usefulness? I mean, the White House Correspondents' Dinner used to be a very sleepy banquet held every spring. Presidents have been speaking there since, I guess, the 1930s. I'm trying to think of who the first president was who spoke. Anyway, it's been going on for a long time. In about 1987, Michael Kelly, the late journalist, fantastic journalist,
decided
when
tragically killed
in Iraq. Actually, was it Afghanistan or Iraq?
I thought it was
maybe
Iraq,
it was Iraq,
but in an accident.
Anyway, he's sadly. He was killed way too young. He was a phenomenal journalist. He was then working at the Baltimore Sun, and he decided that it would be funny to take Fawn Hall, the secretary for Oliver North, who was big in the news then,
for shredding documents.
For shredding documents. She later went on to Hollywood and achieved all kinds of sort of a different chapter in her life. Anyway, she went, and it sort of started a trend of people bringing celebrities and people bringing semi-famous people, famous for Washington people, and eventually, genuine celebrities from Hollywood to Washington. And it became this extravaganza that now goes on for 5-6 days. There's about 20, 25 pre-parties and after-parties. I think it is the perfect symbol of Washington's self-celebration and the question of what exactly we're feeling so good about here when so much of the rest of the country does not like what's going on with both major parties, with the media, with Congress, with any number of institutions that are celebrating.
And when, in fact, official Washington is accomplishing nothing. Right?
Nothing. No, except celebrating. We're very good at celebrating. Very productive in that regard.
And saying how important we are. And
yes, we are.
And how beautiful we are.
Luckily, Bill and I will be home steeped in policy white papers from the Brookings Institute on Saturday.
You may be. I'm going to go to every party I can go.
Yeah, see, I'm not. The thing about this book is I'm no longer invited to any of them, so that makes it easier.
Why? Because you pissed off so many people?
Yeah, actually, it's not true. I mean, I did piss off a lot of people, but I'm still. Actually, I think I'm invited to more things now than I was in the past. But I seem to be blacklisted from a few of the parties.
I remember when I was a very young man working for Governor Jerry Brown the first time around when he was governor of California, how shocked I was actually to see grown men and women cry because there were they felt important meetings with the governor that they were not invited to.
Cry, really?
And they would turn themselves inside. I actually saw tears because they wanted to be in that meeting and they weren't. Now, I'm not shocked to find grown men and women in Washington, D.C. cry because they're not invited to certain parties and twist themselves inside and out to get invited to certain parties. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've had call me to ask me if I can get them into X party.
So can you get them into the Bill Press show party?
When I'm trying to get into the same parties myself sometimes.
Man.
Yeah.
That is quite a statement.
And then, everybody's so glad to see each other. It's
well, okay.
It's a certain level of phoniness, I guess I'm asking.
Which I don't think people are that glad to see each other. I think they want to be invited. They want to feel important. Phoniness is absolutely, I think, the coin of the realm, especially on a weekend like this. And for this book, I parked myself at one point outside the sort of the gate or the guest list checkpoint of one of the big parties, which is thrown by Bloomberg and Vanity Fair, and literally watch people try to beg and lie and cry their way into this. And it's really quite a slice of humanity.
Oh, no, not at their best.
I don't know if they're at their best. They're at their most pathetic, vulnerable. I guess it is sort of like high school. I mean, you do recognize the human impulses of feeling left out and feeling like not one of the cool kids. And look, I mean, Washington is very high school-like. It's been compared to high school for years, and I think that's very much on display.
I have to tell you my own quick story about the what was the Bloomberg, now the Vanity Fair, number one post-dinner party.
Yeah.
The first 5 years I was here, I went to every one of them. I was never invited. I crashed that party.
Really?
And I crashed it with Bill Hemmer, who was then working now at Fox, was then working at CNN. And he and we just made kind of a little game that we would figure out how we could crash that party. Mm-hmm. And we did, and it was great fun. And then you get inside and you see people who are nobody there. I mean, you just wonder why some of these people are there. But it was just once you get in. But the fun, my point was the fun was crashing the party. The 6th year I was invited, I didn't go.
Well, because you'd reached 5. No, have you? So you haven't gone recently, or you haven't tried?
I haven't been invited. I was never been. I was invited that year, and I haven't.
What is your strategy usually to crash a party? Because I mean, I assume it's become increasingly more difficult as this has become a bigger deal. But what is your?
I'm not going to give my secrets away. But you start by going up and saying, "Of course I'm on the list. I just." I RSVP'd 2 weeks ago. I mean, there must be a mistake or something, and then they have to call somebody else, and they call somebody else, and if you're lucky, that person
has heard of you,
recognizes you from TV or has heard of you, and then they say, "Oh, of course, Mr. Press, we're so sorry," right? And this is my friend Bill. You know.
Yeah, and this is my friend.
But other times, one time we just ran behind the guy when he was looking the other way.
Yeah, and I think later
the next thing we knew, we were shaking hands with Mikey Bloomberg.
There you go. No, I mean, it is sort of amazing how. Well, what's also interesting though is on a weekend like this, news does tend to happen for whatever reason. I mean, there was the attempted bombing of Times Square. I chronicle all this in the book. Times Square in 2010. Bin Laden, the raid on Bin Laden's compound was the weekend. A year later in 2011, and yet it never interferes with anyone's good time because we have our priorities.
God forbid.
Yeah.
You had so what does this say to the rest of the country when they see Washington with this orgy of self-importance on a weekend like this?
It's a terrible symbol. I think it's a very telling, and I think it's a very, very ridiculous symbol of how arrogant and how out of touch, and frankly how moneyed this environment has become. I mean, Washington is the richest metropolitan area in the United States. It's all displayed now. I mean, I don't quite know where. I mean, not like the government is paying for this, but supposedly bleeding media companies are putting tens of millions of dollars in entertainment and food into these multiple parties. And
they go all out for these parties.
They go all out. C-SPAN covers it live. It gets good ratings. Which is it's one network that does broadcast things like this, which is why C-SPAN is so great. But I don't know. I don't quite know why presidents still speak. I think it would send a great message. If the
president just said this is silly, just stay home. All right. Now I want to ask you about, because the last piece I've read of yours, this is fake Hollywood, maybe Washington D.C. You were out in the real Tinseltown, Beverly Hills, Henry Waxman's district, to take a look at what is, I think, one of the wealthiest congressional
second wealthiest.
Yeah,
first is around Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens area.
Bastion, a Democratic bastion, as California Democratic chair. Of course, I know it well. Yes. I lived in West Hollywood, right next door.
On the Botox belt. Although this was before Botox was invented, right?
I would put it this way. I was not part of the Botox belt. But
well, you look terrific.
Without Botox. Yeah. What'd you find out there? What's the
I wanted to look at. Yeah, I mean, basically, it is you have this anarchy in the Botox belt because Henry Waxman, who has been in Congress for almost 40 years, who is this real staple of liberal, sort of grinded out legislation, has been just an absolute fixture there. He's retiring, fed up with Congress, like many people who are leaving Congress are fed up. Suddenly you have 18 people vying to replace him, and you have this wonderful cast of kind of Beverly Hills, sort of West L.A. characters. Marianne Williamson, the self-help guru, is running. You have TV producers. You have
Wendy Gruhl,
who I think finished second to
Eric Garcetti
in the mayor's race. Ted Lieu, who is a very, I think, very solid candidate. He's a state senator. A number of people, though, and it's just you have all kinds, and it does sort of replicate the reality show that is Hollywood and that is politics on many days.
To watch that, and whoever wins the Democratic primary, I guess. Generally conceded would be the next member of Congress?
Well, yes and no. I mean, they have this runoff system there now where the top two finishers,
of course,
regardless of party, have this runoff. So basically the primary is June 3rd, and you have two, the number one and number two will go out, will compete in November. So, I mean, look, it's a predominantly Democratic district, but, when you have 35-40% Republicans, I think there's like 3 Republicans in the race, but one of them is a little bit better known than the others. He could,
maybe
theoretically do well in the runoff.
But Hollywood comes to the Potomac again this weekend. The book is This Town. Mark Leibovitch here. Your calls, your questions, you can dump on Washington. Now's the time to do it. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
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 How many more? How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls? How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough. 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 Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday.
It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour. This Town is the name of the book that made a lot of noise here in Washington, D.C. This Town, 2 parties and a funeral, plus plenty of valet parking in America's gilded capital. Mark Leibovitch is the author. He is here in the studio with us. 2 parties and a funeral. The funeral, of course, was the funeral of the late, great Tim Russert.
It was, yes.
And that was sort of the quintessential Washington event, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, that's the first chapter, the first 10,000 words of the book. I mean, I wanted to deconstruct that scene. You had all the mafia tribes there. You had all the Clintons were there, the Bushes were there, the Obamas were there.
It was an invitation-only event.
Funeral. Yes, and I actually saw people scalping tickets outside. Never seen that at a funeral before. Only in Washington, right?
Right, and only would and the people that spoke. They spoke. I mean, sincerely.
Well, I certainly wouldn't, question their sincerity. I do think what was fascinating about that whole spectacle, which is why I began the book with it, is that it just was essentially a cocktail party. It was. You saw people trying to book, politicians there. You saw people passing out business cards. There was pretty intense jockeying for the prime eulogy slots. It's another great Washington phrase, the prime eulogy slot, right? And the telegenic choke up, pose for when people knew the camera was on them. So at that moment, I just sort of started taking notes and decided. Maybe this is the moment to sort of start chronicling this gilded history of what Washington has become. And there was so much money there. It was, people it looked like a Hollywood Oscar party.
So what is the secret of success in Washington? I mean, I guess there are people like Paris Hilton who are famous for just being famous, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and she owns Washington. I mean, she, no.
No. But in Washington, do you have to actually succeed to be successful, if you know what I mean?
That's a great question. Of course, you're asking the guy who is now blacklisted from every party at the Correspondent, and proudly, I might add. No. The secret to success is, I mean, I would hope as an American, as someone who sees himself as meritocratic and fair, that people who have talent and work hard and who believe in the right things, whatever those are, and who are in it for the right reasons, are going to succeed. But unfortunately, the dirty little secret, and it's not so much of a secret in Washington, is that being an opportunist and being an operator and being good on TV and schmoozing the right people and being that guy on the cover of this town. Are we on TV? We're on TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that guy, which is a kind of unctuousness, a kind of pretty boyness, a kind of...
You don't know who it is, but we all have seen a million of him.
We've all seen this guy. Yeah. And, I think that increasingly that does prevail, and it's showbiz. And, again, you would like to think that our hearts will prevail, but it's not always the case here.
Now, I'm sure to a certain extent this is true or is it? In Chicago, in New York, in L.A. I mean, look, I lived 9 years in L.A. There's a lot of phoniness in L.A. as well.
Yeah, but the weather's
right?
so nice.
That's the difference. Or Atlanta, you name the town, right? But Washington more than anywhere else?
Here's why I focused on Washington. I mean, yes, you could write this book about any number of, certainly political capitals. I mean, I've gotten notes from people all over the world say, hey, come do this in London, do this in Ottawa, wherever.
Yeah, right.
What's distinct about Washington, other than the fact that I live here and I work here and I know this world, is the fact that this is supposedly for keeps. I mean, this is a city that supposedly is built on public service, where we're supposed to help the rest of the country, where we're supposed to work in the public interest. And I think that ethic has been turned on its head to a point where self-service is now much more of a prevailing attitude here. And a lot of the reason, again, is cash. I mean, a lot of it's the very easy riches that are available to people here. A lot of it's the very easy celebrity that's available to people here with new media, and so much new technology and new platforms available. So I think that, again, that's turned the ethic on its head, and it's taken a lot of the opportunism and a lot of the things that have always been here, and they've kind of exacerbated it to a great degree.
Well, it wouldn't be, as you said earlier in the beginning, it wouldn't be so bad if we had something to celebrate. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen the play All the Way with LBJ with Bryan Cranston but that was celebrating a time that year when LBJ, get the Voting Rights Act passed and the Civil Rights Act passed. I mean, if you did something like that, you could say, hell, let's throw a hell of a party, to see that we got together and got something done, right?
Right. Although, I mean, these were certainly divisive times. I mean, those were. I mean, it was famously divisive era, and there was obviously not, great consensus on this. And you could say that in 2010, I mean, the healthcare bill was passed. Dodd-Frank was passed. It wasn't exactly a united, let's all celebrate our great accomplishments time then either. I mean, President Obama was about to get swamped in the midterms. There was all kinds of outrage and everything. So I mean, it's all kind of relative. But I think that I don't know. I just think that we are scraping, the city, especially institutions like Congress, are scraping new lows in terms of productivity and popularity and dysfunction, and yet here we all are going to spend 5 days doing nothing but celebrating.
Making it even worse. Pardon me. The paperback is out now of This Town. Again, we'll have a link up on our website at This Town. It's a great read, and you may read it and weep, but it'll tell you.
But you'll laugh too.
You'll laugh. No, absolutely.
You will laugh and you will weep. It's a fine winning combination. One would hope.
Great job, Mark. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Always a pleasure.
Look forward to reading you, as always, in the New York Times, and I'll be back and wrap things up this Wednesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819 Dartmouth College versus Woodward Supreme Court case turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
That's it for this Wednesday morning. Not even time for a parting shot this morning. Let's just say congratulations again to Adam Silver from the NBA for taking that strong action against Donald Sterling. Have a great Wednesday, folks. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning on the first day of May.
This is the Bill Press Show.